evening, everybody. This is the Town of Fairfield Conservation Commission acting as the Inland Wetlands Agency. Today is June 4th, 2025. Luke Thomas, Richard Boucher, Peter Mahoney, Ed Luxinger, Diane Saunders, Heather Rosenthal, and Salvatore Masagi are here. We should stand up and do the pledge now. It's right. But we should do the
flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Okay, and I will appoint Sal as a full member for tonight. Okay, very good. In the event that Dabney shows up late, I'll let you know and we'll swap up. Okay. All right. Approval of the draft meeting minutes of the Inland Wetlands Agency meeting, May 7, 2025. Do the commissioners have any corrections or comments? No. All right, motion to approve. Ed and Rick second, all in favor? Aye. And number 2 is the special meeting, the site walk for May 28th, 2025. Any comment corrections there? And then I'll ask for a motion to approve. Rick, anybody seconds? Ed seconds. All in favor? Aye, all around. Okay. Go right into public hearing number 1, which is continued for W2-25-031 land tax. Northwell Terrace, map 228, parcel 16. 4-lot residential subdivision with associated infrastructure within a regulated area. Decision may be made if the hearing is concluded or the hearing may be continued. The original 35-day public hearing timeframe to complete the hearing ends on June 11, 2025. A 65-day time extension may be provided by the applicant. Further public hearing relations to August 15th, 2025 are possible. The next regularly scheduled meeting is August 6th. If the hearing is completed, the agency shall make a decision within 35 days. Commissioners that are eligible to vote are Lucas Thomas, Daphne Bowen, Dave Fain, Peter Hood, Ted Luxinger, Diane Saunders, and Rosenthal. Commissioners not present on 5/7/25 and eligible to vote. Pretty much based on the record, there is difference in reporting exhibit Richard Boucher, Kato Mahoney, and Salvatore Masagi. Staff has not completed the review of the revised application materials and recommends that the agency keep the public hearing open at this time. Okay, so before I get to you, sir, Richard, Kate, and Sal, have you viewed the record, the recording and viewed the exhibits?
I have not.
You have not. You have not. Okay, so we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay. Hello, sir.
Hello, good evening. I'm Brian Carey, professional wetland scientist for Land Tech. I'm here on behalf of the applicant Maplewood LLC regarding application WP 25-0031 for 845 Mill Hill Terrace, which proposes the subdivision of a little bit of over 3 acre parcel into 4 conforming residential lots. Since our last meeting, we have revised the plans. We have made quite significant revisions to the plans based on direct feedback from the commission, the town engineering staff, and the conservation department. In response to those comments, since our last meeting was discussed, we had conducted test pits to evaluate the subsurface conditions for the proposed stormwater infiltrations, which have led to the reconfiguration of the subdivision. The findings of the test pits confirmed a shallow presence of bedrock in the area where the former infiltration system was going to work. While it would have still worked with separation, we found a better configuration that actually was able to pull back the entire subdivision outside, almost outside completely of the 100-foot upland review area. The update also includes modified road alignment, adjustment of the lot boundaries, revised grading and drainage, all in a way that significantly improves the project's environmental setting and performance. The revised plans includes greater setbacks from the 100-foot upland review area, the reconfiguration of the conservation easement along the western buffer, which was requested by the commission, and again, a redesign of the main drainage system for the road. I want to reiterate again that this application is just for the construction of the road at this time. Individual lots that fall within the 100-foot upland review area would require individual wetland permits before construction of the lots. We believe that the revised plan, which I'll go over in a minute, meets the commission's regulatory expectations, but also represents a superior and more environmentally sound alternative when compared to the previous earlier iterations, which also included a 5-lot subdivision, which you previously reviewed as part of another application about a year ago. Again, the new updated site plan results in less site disturbance, fewer impervious areas, better protection of and a more functional long-term stormwater management strategy. Most importantly, we have now fully addressed all the outstanding comments that we've received to date from both the engineering and conservation department, and all of that information has been placed into the record and is in front of you as of this meeting. After the last meeting, we did go out and complete test pits throughout the property on May 2nd, 2025 at all of the proposed subsurface stormwater infiltration system locations, even on the individual lots, which again will be permitted under individual in the wetlands. During the time of the test pits, again, we did encounter shallow bedrock in some areas. The site plans have been updated to include the test pit data. Despite the constraints of the test pit results, we have confirmed adequate vertical separation and favorable infiltration rates in alternative areas of the site that allowing us to maintain an on-site infiltration-based stormwater management strategy that is in compliance with the town of Fairfield's engineering standards, but also the 2024 DEP water quality standards. As stated, as a direct result of the test pits, we have revised the layout, which we believe is more optimal, given some of the constraints that we ran into. So just for a quick background, this was what we had originally submitted as part of the site schematic design. It does include the 4 lots with all the grading and theoretical stormwater systems that do meet the requirements of the conservation's stormwater regulations. This design was after receiving feedback from the 5-lot subdivision, which we incorporated all the comments from the commission last time. This is the new design, which you can see pulls back the road closer to the property line. Accommodates the stormwater, but more importantly, it basically gets most of the site outside of the upland review area. There's only a small portion of this lot that still remains, and then most of it again is most of these lots now fall outside of the upland review area. We thought that was a benefit based on feedback from the staff and the commission. The lot boundary and building envelopes have been reconfigured to increase the setbacks. The private road access was narrowed from 32 to 30 feet, but is still conforming with the town engineering standards for town roads. In addition, the road was aligned and slightly shortened to create a more compact layout. This redesign pulls infrastructure further from the wetland buffer, thereby decreasing grading within the upland review area, improving the overall protection of the adjacent ecological resources. Collectively, these changes result in a smaller development footprint, fewer trees being removed, less overall disturbance, and a clear enhancement in conformance with the inland wetland regulations, mitigation hierarchy, avoid, minimize, and mitigate. Just to check some of the boxes. One of the comments from the conservation department staff that I do believe came through the commission was to have a planted buffer within the conservation easement. We have done that as best we can, realizing that there is a substantial root system in the area of the conservation easement. So we do have a planting plan that is being proposed, and we will basically install that as part of the subdivision when the road is being constructed and before any of the individual lots would be opened up for individual construction. No, in regards to the conservation easement, there's no utilities, sanitary, storm, or water that are being routed through the conservation easement, thereby avoiding fragmentation or trenching impacts that might otherwise disturb soil structure, root systems, or adjacent wetland hydrology. Importantly, the road stormwater outlet, which was previously located near the western buffer, has now been relocated further downslope and westward. This repositioning increases the physical separation between the stormwater discharge point, which was formerly here and was in the conservation easement. Now it's located outside of the easement, which we believe is a better design because it will be allowed to buffer through the conservation easement and through the planted buffer. So we did formalize, or we are still formalizing a 15-foot wide stormwater easement that bifurcates this lots. It will be contained on one of the private lots and will be the easement will be in favor of the town in case in future there is some work that needs to be done. We did also submit an operation and maintenance plan and a stormwater pollution prevention plan that was requested by the engineering staff. It should be noted, this is only a 3 acre, less than a 5 acre disturbance. So this sediment erosion control plan is something that would be approved locally and doesn't need a general permit through the state of Connecticut. So your review and the planning and zoning review is the only one that is required, and approval through the engineering department. No state approvals are required. In response to the engineering staff, we increased the water quality volume that was previously being provided. We still exceed greatly the DEP standards under the water quality manual, the 2024 water quality manual. We've increased it from around 1,300 cubic feet to 1,900 cubic feet. So there's quite a big delta, which is an improvement, even though we were still meeting the water quality standards previously. I talked about the level spreader. Again, there's been a reduction in all the storm events, significant reduction in all the storm events, and you can see that in the stormwater management plan that we have submitted as part of the revised plans that were submitted a week or so after our last meeting. That being said, it should be noted that all of the stormwater management is in accordance with section 7.13 of your inland wetland regulations by keeping the 10-year post-development flows below the 2-year pre-development rate. One of the other comments was regarding a tree inventory. We've done our best to minimize the amount of tree impacts on the site. As part of this, this phase of the project, you can see that relative to the individual lot development, trees will be removed within the footprint of the actual buildings. We do anticipate there will probably be more removal as part of the individual lot developments, but we will at that point come in with individual planting plans associated with these lots once they're no longer theoretical in nature, even though these have been designed to construction at this point. That being said, I know staff has not reviewed it. I would make a recommendation if it's possible to close the hearing. I do think that this has been substantially reviewed several times. We've provided numerous feasible and prudent alternatives. Again, there's no wetlands on the site. All the wetlands are off the site. And again, we've minimized all of the upland review area, disturbance to really only the one line that is in the corner here at the terminus of cul-de-sac. Most of the other disturbances are falling outside of the upland review area, other than the installation of the level spreader. Again, I just want to go through this quickly. We do believe the revised roadway alignment and narrowing shortened it from 32 to 30 feet. We do believe that minimizing the amount of disturbance is creating less impact. And we've been able to increase the amount of water quality discharge as a result. Again, this revision is being driven by the test pit data that was collected after the last meeting. The new alignment increases the distance from the 100-foot upland review area, avoiding unnecessary encroachments into adjacent buffers. Conservation easement, again, I do believe that was an enhancement over previous plans. There still is no, from an ecological standpoint, there is no impacts to neighboring resources. Everything is either off-site, mitigated through plantings, water quality, stormwater improvements, and the conservation improvement that's going to be left in perpetuity. We've also provided sequential mitigation in the plans through providing in-depth construction sequencing. Again, individual lots will be, I don't mean to keep harping on this, but they will be permitted individually and have their own specific conditions. Just want to point out that the project as redesigned improves hydrology and water quality with the re-engineered decentralized stormwater system. It preserves native vegetation and ecological function, particularly within the sensitive resource zones. And simply put, it's just a better design that we are providing at this point, based on less environmental impact. But while we're also still conforming with the inland wetland regulatory, with the Fairfield Inland Wetland Watercourses regulations, not only section 7, section 10, which are your criteria for decision. This was never, just a reminder, this public hearing was scheduled for interest in the public. It was never scheduled for significant impact. We have gone and provided feasible and prudent alternatives for the commission to consider, even though it's not required since there was no finding significant impact. I don't think there's been anyone here from the public in the year and a half that we've been working on this subdivision. So at this point, I don't have much more to say other than I would request if the commission would close the hearing. I think we've done a good job of answering all the questions, looking at different alternatives. And again, the site is not functioning on septic, it goes to sanitary sewer. So any nitrogen or loading is strictly from an atmospheric depositional type of situation, and it won't be related to future leaching, septic leaching into any adjacent resources. That being said, I can answer any questions now, assuming that staff has some comments as well.
Sure, I'll just stop there for just a moment. This particular item on public hearing docket, I'll have Diane be a full member for this, because you did say you reviewed and saw everything, and Heather, you did as well. So we're a full contingent of 7 now. Okay. Thank you. Commissioners, any questions to the
I have some
applicant?
comments.
Okay.
You want me to go first?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, just to address the public hearing aspect of this first. I'm not disagreeing with you. This may be a better plan, but this is really the first time we're seeing this tonight. I think we deserve a chance to look at it, digest it, and understand it. So personally, I would want to continue the public hearing and not close it tonight.
I was leaning that way anyways, especially when the staff had said that, so that's okay. If there's anything substantive that you'd like to ask.
Oh, I have a bunch of substantive things. So with that being said, I think, you know, on a general appearance, by moving the road away, it seems you increase the viability of the lots. I think the other way, they were much more constrained, and now you probably have rooms for pools and other activities on the site that normally people want. However, I still have the same concerns about, you know, the wetlands, steep slopes, and a significant resource downslope in the form of the mill pond. I like to see a couple things. I'd like you to consider extending the conservation easement, preferably to the 100-foot setback line, but anything, and not including the lot at the end of the cul-de-sac. I'm not including that. I'm just talking about the ones that are fronting on the mill pond. I'd like to see the conservation easement extended. As you said, the existing vegetation is an important buffer to the pond. The slopes are fairly steep. I would prefer to address that comment now rather than when they come back for individual lot approvals, because we'll be getting the same thing that we did in the past, where we said there's, you know, no significant impact, even though, and we can't, under today's standard, we can't go, or we can't regulate unless we identify a significant impact. So I think now is the time to address possibly extending the conservation easement. I think that would go a long way as far as I'm concerned. I noticed that when I was out at this site that most of this forest is, it's a nice forest, but there's a lot of invasive species. So the first thing that we should be looking at in terms of management rather than planting is invasive species control plan. Personally, I'm not in favor of planting these 1-gallon shrubs underneath that existing canopy. They're just not going to survive. If we're going to do a planted buffer, I'd like to see it at the edge of this disturbance area, and the area that was disturbed to act as to reinforce the buffer. Or maybe you can have a combination of expanded conservation easement area and a planted buffer between each lots. That might have to be done at the time of the lots come in, because obviously you're not going to disturb it just to do the buffer. But I would be comfortable seeing that. I had some comments. I'd like to also see a demarcation feature wherever the conservation easement ends up, so that it's clearly monumented and identified, and there's not going to be any problems with people approaching into those conservation easement areas. I did have some comments to staff regarding what we should be looking for in the future in terms of conservation easements and language. I like our conservation easement language to identify these conservation areas, the trees as landscape material rather than as wooded potential firewood or potential timber, because if they are disturbed or removed, the landscape value is much greater than timber or firewood. I'd like to see in our conservation easement language identify the provisions of the Connecticut Environmental Protection Act, that there's 5 times damages for the landscape value of the trees that would be removed. And I'd also like to, at conservation easement, to also identify that whoever does the damage is responsible for attorney's fees. Those are things I'd like to incorporate in the conservation easement language. I did have a question for you, Brian, that you're creating like an orphan lot on the eastern side of the
Not anymore.
that strip land that's going to be dedicated to the town.
Where are you
On
referring?
the right side of the road there, you have it's bigger than the.
No, that's an easement. That's an existing easement, so that would be within the right of way.
What's the easement for?
There's a sign.
Billboard easement.
Yeah, there's a billboard easement. It used to be the old Pequot on exit
So,
19.
but who's going to maintain that strip of land?
So that would be in the town right away, but the easement itself is the requirement of the easement holder to maintain access there. I mean, if that grows up, it's pretty far outside of the easement. That's their requirement to, they want access back there, they have to.
Okay.
And that's the condition it's in now today too. I don't know if how often they access that. I think they just go right off at 19 now. that billboard's still pretty active.
Yeah.
That being said, too, you made a mention about an invasive species plan. That is in the record. We did do a site-specific plan. That was updated based on our recent field walkout.
I think that's much more appropriate. Those 1 gallon shrubs are really not gonna survive under that dense canopy. And so, again, I think there's an opportunity to create buffers on each one of the lots, but maybe that's the time to do it at the lots. Those are my comments right now.
Okay. My only, is in response to that, commissioners, I'm not sure if we can arbitrarily determine if a tree is landscape or not. There might be statutes that define what is a tree and what is landscape.
I think we could at least explore those.
Okay, but
Yeah, I understand what you're saying.
that'll be something.
I think we just,
It would be unfair to bring it up to the applicant now and make them.
I'm just
decide.
trying, I think what I'm getting at is we need, moving forward, the old conservation English language easement is not adequate. And we need to explore that and incorporate new art in these.
Okay.
I think we've seen that in a number of.
Yes, I agree. Any other commissioners have any comments?
I think it's a big improvement. I think it's a big improvement.
It's a big improvement.
Yeah,
Okay.
it's notwithstanding your concerns, but I'm pleased with it. I like the road much better.
I know Tim's online. I don't know if he's able to talk, but I know in the past, we've had either, obviously we have markers, but maybe boulders, boulders, something along those lines. Just to put it a little.
I'd like to see something
like that.
more, since it was conservation easement, something more like a monument with a nail.
We've talked about that. We could put the boulder and the monument on
That would work.
on the boulder.
We've done it a million different. Yeah. I will do something that's.
Okay. Yes.
I just wanted to make a point that it looks like Commissioner Bowen is online.
Oh, okay.
Mr. Bishop said he noted your appearance at the meeting at 7:07
Okay.
for the record.
So,
Wow.
for the record, to be clear, Commissioner Bowen is here. She just happens to be online. And
Yeah, we couldn't see her. I
Couldn't see her, and
will
I've-
screen
right.
share.
so Heather, you're off as an alternate for this, so we have a full contingent of 7, right? And because Dabney is eligible to vote. So that's great. Although I don't think we're gonna vote. We're gonna continue this unfortunately to August. And any other commissioners have any comments? Otherwise, Daphne, if you do, chime in. If not, we'll let the staff do their work. They did want time to review it.
No problem.
And you're right, nobody showed up, but in the event somebody does, we can close it out right then and there in August if nobody does.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Make a motion to adjourn the public.
Just stays open.
Yeah, we're not, yeah, we can't close it.
We're not
If
closing
we
it.
close it, we have to.
It'll just-
vote
it'll
within
just
35
stay
days.
Are we still within the timeframe? Do we need their
No, we are,
acceptance?
August 15th, next regularly scheduled
We're good.
meeting is August 6th, so we just make it,
We just make it.
that should be the last one.
Yep, perfect. And that's the intention. Okay, moving on to number 2, it's WP 25-0065. William Kenny Associates LLC, 1230-1260 Merwin Lane, map 220, parcel 12 and 11. Corrective action to restore filled wetlands and install native plantings within the upland review area and wetlands. Decision may be made if the hearing is completed, or the hearing may be continued.
It's off. Sorry, his screen was still sharing.
Oh.
Just wanted to make sure that before he left that if we were.
Original 35-day public hearing timeframe to complete the hearing ends on July 9th, 2025. A 65-day time extension may be provided by the applicant. So further public hearing continuations to September 12th, 2025 are possible. The next regularly scheduled meeting is August 6th, 2025. If the hearing is completed, the agency shall make a decision within 35 days. The staff recommends approval with special conditions. Hello, how are you? Yes, please. Good evening.
I am William Kenny. I'm the principal of Kenny Associates in
Aaron Fairfield, professional wetland scientist, soil scientist, and landscape architect. Here this evening on behalf of the Pilot House, and here with me is Doreen Caruso,
Executive Director.
Executive Director of the Pilot House. We're here for you regarding a application for a wetland permit to correct a violation. There was, late last year, some asphalt millings were placed on the property without permit. The violation was issued, and since then we've working diligently to put together the restoration plan. We started by documenting existing conditions, went out and flagged the wetlands, had the property survey updated by Land Surveying Services. Property is at 1230 and 1260 Merwin's Lane, so immediately east of that and south of the Merritt Parkway. About 10 acres. The area that we're focusing on this evening is on the western end of that, the area that abuts Merwin's Lane. Basco Brook runs through the property in this area from the northeast to the southwest. There's a dwelling and then some farm paddock areas and sheds as well. Two access drives exist. There have been stated there's two lots, so there's two access drives. One includes a bridge over Basco Brook that is currently in disrepair and not functioning. So the primary access to the property currently is through the southern lot, and access includes for residents, for farm employees, for farm deliveries, and for clients of the Pilot House, which is a nonprofit that is dedicated to helping people with special needs, and Doreen can provide more information about that, as well as animals. They rescue animals and have them on the farm, and so both the animals are helping the people and the people are helping the animals to thrive and live a more full life and with pride and happiness, fulfillment. So as we've been here before you a number of times over the last 6 months or so, and obtained various bits of direction from you and staff, we appreciate your patience as we put together and submit this application. And it's the primary components of this application are to remove a substantial amount of the millings that are on the property. We're going to reduce it in depth and area, so horizontally and vertically reduce it. We took a hard look at area that's needed for vehicular access, and that includes large trucks that come and deliver farm supplies. We wanted room for vehicles to be able to drive in and turn around. Because it becomes quite difficult for some of these trucks that are trailer to maneuver. So we were looking to have an ability for a full turnaround. Occasionally when there are special events, additional parking is needed. So that turnaround area finds as well on other days when there might be an event to provide opportunities for parking. And then we strategically looked at how the lay of the land, which way it's pitching, and identified opportunities to where we pulled back the millings to revegetate these areas, and due to the grade of the land, also be able to provide an opportunity to collect the water that would be coming off the millings and give it an opportunity to be cleansed either through filtering through vegetation or filtering through soil or both, so that those biofiltration areas are one in the south here, one in the middle. We also, when we were locating these, we were looking at existing trees. And so putting these areas in areas where there are some existing trees. The grade, the water pitches in this direction to the south where there's a man-made pond here, a farm pond that was made decades ago. And it does, so it does not pitch to Sasko Brook in this area, so the water from the northern part of the loop would drain to this central vegetated area. And then the water from the southern part would drain to the southern vegetated area. We also are introducing another vegetated area to the west between these access drive and the brook. However, really, no water from the paved surface is draining to that area. It's primarily draining to the south. It's not draining to the west. So, pretty much a summary of what's being proposed.
Very good. Commissioners, any questions?
I just have a question. The northern loop is higher in elevation now, but when you remove the fill, will it still pitch south?
Yes, it'll be much more gentle, but there'll still be a pitch.
So
You said reducing the amount of this material. Can you tell me by reducing? I mean, are we
Sure.
not talking about removing all of it or?
We are proposing to leave a couple inches as a smoothing surface to fill in potholes, smooth the surface so that it's more stable. But anything above that, we are removing anything of deeper depth, as well as on the drawing, there's the limits from the surveyor identified the limits of current limits. See, I forget my glasses on.
Talking about removing all the filling in, all in the whole area that's filled, down to a few inches.
Yes.
Do you have any estimate how much material it is?
There isn't an estimate, but there's a specific condition that the site monitor that and provide to us.
I just want, Bill, I think he's probably figured it out.
Actually not.
So the line you're drawing now?
That's the current limits of where the material is.
So there's several hundred or thousands of yards of material gonna be moved from site.
Probably, yeah.
Yeah, so we're just gonna take it down till we get
Yeah.
to
Yeah.
pretty much the surface grade that it was and leave it top dressing on the surface.
Is it gonna be compacted mechanically?
Yes.
Okay.
So, I don't know if anybody else has any comments. My focus on this one is, Sasko Brook. It seems like in the area of of that existing driveway, that you have a couple of parking spots there that probably could be moved and make that move over.
Sorry.
To the right?
If these
So,
spots.
To the left of the bridge.
Yeah.
That's where the driveway is.
No, not the driveway, the parking spots he shows.
Drive.
So I would, you're gonna leave, I assume the driveway can't be used for cars, so right now it's a pedestrian, and horse type of.
It's like a broken.
Oh, the driveway of the bridge.
Yeah.
The bridge.
We're just
Oh, well, that's a good point that, I'm sorry, I misunderstood.
This is what.
The driveway, we certainly still need to leave access for.
Yeah, so right here, take these two out. I think that would make a more robust. And then if you're gonna leave the driveway, that's fine. I think right now that's probably a misnomer. It's a walking path. You can't drive over, right?
No, but our intent is to, we do,
Fix the bridge.
depending
You have
upon.
to come back to us if you
Right,
want.
no, I understand that,
Yeah,
but.
but
my
I'm just
goal
saying,
is
so
depending upon what we get through here, what it ends up costing, the goal is if
Right.
there's any money left, we do need to fix the
You're gonna-
bridge.
yeah.
The bridge.
Yes. So the other comment I had was, I think that the trees along Sasko Brook are appropriate to help establish the shade over there. I don't know that you need to plant all the other trees or some of the other trees on the site, especially the ones underneath the existing. I'd be okay with, this is to save you money.
Some perennials.
Use some perennials or some shrubs in some of those areas. I think a lot of the other area is wooded already, so I personally would be okay. And I'm not speaking for this committee, but I personally would be okay if you diversified it a little bit with some shrubs elsewhere. And I think that would help you. Because trees are a few $100 each, the shrubs are under $100. So I'd be okay with that if that would help you out. I wasn't realizing you were gonna take out that much material. Yeah, that's a lot of material.
I need a little help. Bill, the driveway, that is the current existing entrance into the property?
At the northern end, there's two driveways. So there's one at the north.
Okay, so that,
That blue line up there?
Yeah,
that's the bridge
that's
kind
a
of
wooden
broken.
bridge that's in disrepair. It's
Right.
not really the
Repair.
driveway.
Right.
But it's marked as
I
driveway.
wouldn't drive over it.
Yes, okay.
Right, it's
Some of
not,
You're
we should have marked it, or maybe we, what did I say? Oh.
It says driveway.
Bridge replacement. So yeah, we should have, said.
There we go, okay.
Yeah. But we should have said bridge is not currently functioning.
As chairman said, the actual entrance is the lower left with the pink line.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Okay. I'm good.
Yes, Heather.
So how are you going to remove the material from under the existing trees in the center area of the driveway right now?
So that'll be mostly hand labor going in and carefully pulling it back just enough to get it away from the trees and then a machine would likely backblade it where you pull up and drop a blade and pull it back gently. And then they can put down their blade or bucket and stop just off the surface, and the last couple inches would be removed by hand.
Are we talking about if we're talking about the trees here in the center,
In the center.
those trees by the tree, they're not even viable tree. Those trees should have been taken down as well. Our tree person, they're not really viable. They're pine trees that have the disease already, so they're not.
Hemlocks with the
Right.
woolly adult.
Right, so they're already
I thought there was a couple maples in there too.
not in that section. On the other side.
Right. Yeah, it's mostly hemlocks in
Yeah.
that area.
So
They're
that
diseased.
Okay, thank you. So
So
that
my goal is we want to clean that area up, so we.
completely, that'll be completely, all of the millings will be removed completely from that area.
That's shown with that green shading.
And so I'm just having stood on the property and it was, I'm thinking about the wooden bridge now. The elevation of the current driveway, which I understand is gonna come all the way down significantly, several feet, in fact, right? I mean, that's,
Except the drive always rose up, but it wasn't as wide. So there's certainly material, the depth of the material off to the side is, you can see it comes up into here and it comes up into here. But the driveway always had to rise up to reach that bridge. So.
okay, so that
when
will,
you s- Yeah, when you stand out there was along this edge here, you could see 3 or 4 feet. of material.
yes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, there.
And so I'm just curious about how this now center area how will the water be filtered if it's still gonna have the millings there, which then will become impervious? They're, right? I mean, you drive on them, they'll be melting and thing will occur, so that'll become impervious. So how will that middle berm area? Is that what you're, I mean, I'm trying to think what you're gonna use that as. How will that handle all that water that's gonna be coming? Because the whole reason this would happen was because of flooding, right? Like, you're trying to- I'm just trying to understand the,
Right. So if,
Flooding comes from.
yeah, there's two things going on when there's a flooding of greatest impact is when there's a really large storm and the river
That's the bottom.
rises.
okay,
But on the smaller storms, the more frequent smaller storms, which are the storms of greatest concern for water quality, that's what these biofilters are doing there for those smaller storms, something like a half inch or an inch does. And those, we have a 144 contour here, and then the 142 contour comes through here. So the water is pitching that way. And so all of this material is pitching this way into I should have looked at the contours more closely when I gave the
I don't
presentation.
see any lines, I'm sorry, I know in the past, Not seeing your.
The red line?
Oh, and this one?
It's a fine point.
Oh,
Maybe you
okay,
can
there we
increase
go.
the
I can
thickness.
see them really filling
Oh,
it.
sorry, I
Yeah.
can use that.
Use a brush.
Okay,
So,
there we go. Thank you.
sorry, that's my fault.
Okay. Nice. The big screen.
And then, so that water, and then the water from this section here is going that way. And then
So it all drains away from the brook.
yes.
Right.
I just have a quick question on the non-functioning driveway. So is that contour is 144, but then closer to Sasko Brook, it does drop from 142.
Right.
So you are gonna have some drainage off that
There's,
area?
There is once this rises up until you get right to the bridge and then it drops. So you do, but for the most part, it's from here, it's rising up to the bridge. So when it rains, the water will come back.
But see, but isn't it, see, way over, Bill, like,
Yes. Which, this guy or?
the other
These are
way?
different contours, yeah. So this is a 142. There's a high spot through here. So where this water goes that way.
That's what I was talking, yeah, so
Yeah.
that's what I'm saying. So there is gonna be some going back that towards Sasko Brook.
So that's pretty much coming from that the planted area and not from the proposed surface area itself.
It's pretty heavily vegetated, fine, but pretty
The
heavily.
undisturbed area?
The undisturbed area, this area is. Yeah, undisturbed.
Yeah, undisturbed.
And so that does pitch back toward.
But it's high, northern, well, that high, around the brook is a high elevation off the water level.
Yes.
Coming this way.
Yeah, the bank is.
Would it be possible where that little,
That's
where the
okay.
circle is, the blue circle, and there's about
Would be very important.
about 1 inch, that elongated, part where the undisturbed area is it possible to bring the driveway or the contour of the driveway in by a few feet so that we know that it's on the downslope? That, so it wouldn't have a possibility of going the other way into the Sasko Brook.
And what we could do is
Right where you're.
build a little elevated.
Yes, okay.
Slight berm right
Right
there.
there, yes. I think that's the
Yeah.
concern.
Yeah.
Like a swale?
As long as it's over here, not where the pad is, right?
Yes,
Over there.
and we can adjust.
We can-
Yeah.
Massage the
It's
slope.
such- it's such-
Right there, it's pretty flat. That was why I suggested taking those other things out. You get a more of a buffer. The existing driveway there, if it's not being used for cars, I think actually does do some infiltration.
Yeah.
The other side on the so-called undisturbed area seems to be pretty natural and would probably do some infiltration.
The soils are very porous.
I think it's fine.
Okay.
I think it's so much better.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, so much better.
Yeah.
Sorry you had to go through this.
Me too.
Yeah. Thank you for working with us.
Yes,
and
it is.
appreciate
It's, yeah.
having a conversation with my benefactor with all of the.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's still a public hearing. So any commissioners, any other? No, yes.
I just want to clarify something. So are you saying that the whole site, the millings on the entire site are going to be reduced to only a couple inches deep?
That's
Just a portion of the site?
The whole site.
Okay.
All right, and for, again, for
That's a big.
clarification for voting purposes, we're back to the original. So Sal, you are on. Dabney is here or she's not
No,
here?
you have a full.
I have a full Dabney's here.
Yeah.
You're not on, so it's just no alternates. Sorry, I'm sorry about this. Push the button on, off. Yes. So Dabney's on and we're all here, the main. and-
One other question.
Yep.
What's the reasonable time period to get this work done? Gonna be done by this, this coming winter?
That's the goal pending what we raise in October.
Ray,
All comes down to funding.
so you won't start the work until after you do the fundraiser?
I'm trying to work with my contractor to see if he's willing to take some now and
Okay.
take some later. which we're negotiating now, so pending. He kind of couldn't really give me anything. He didn't want to make any guesstimates until he knew what, he didn't want to have to do things 3 times. So he said, once I get through this, we'll talk.
Commissioner Bowen from online, anything?
Nope, I'm good. I'm ready to make a motion.
Not yet. No, it's a public hearing. So this is
Oh.
this is the applicant's
Right.
position. Commissioners, anything further for the applicant?
Just a little lingering. I think I'm just dense, but I'm not quite clear. We're not removing all the millings that were. What is the reason for that? Just for the public benefit that's listening? Why are we not removing all the positive materials? Meaning all of it, not just part of it. In terms of the the upland review area, I'm not talking, I'm not, our jurisdiction doesn't go any on that anyway, so I'm not focused on what's happening outside of that. So just for the public's understanding, I'm unclear, and hopefully other people are, of why we're not asking for all of the positive material to be removed.
All right.
Asking the applicant.
Yes. Or anyone who wants to, it's just not clear to me, and I'm hoping there's somebody else
Certainly-
listening who might want some information too.
Right. It's certainly a different animal when it's laid down as a pavement use versus stockpile as a way to get rid of it or so we looked at it from that perspective and the need to provide a stable surface and that it is commonly used in this way. And with the stone and the binding material and the compaction, that it substantially becomes very similar to an asphalt driveway, an asphalt road that's right outside the property. So we looked at it from that perspective to provide that.
So you can still gain the parking spaces.
Yeah.
To be honest, it's really not parking spaces. That's what we keep calling it. It truly is not for parking spaces. It truly is to benefit for us to be able to have access to the farm and have turnaround because we don't have access to 2 driveways any longer. And like I've explained, I apologize. I wish when you guys were there, that I had showed you, I assume you saw, we've got the telephone pole that's in the middle of the driveway when you're pulling in. And then as soon as you walk in to the left there's another one. So it makes it very challenge.
This is a weird question. Can
what be
poles
moved?
moved? I mean, can't they be moved?
The telephone poles?
It's an act of God. almost.
Those are electrical poles and those were placed there by the UI for,
But it's usually several, it's thousands and thousands of dollars.
Without talking out loud, I don't see that. So in essence, it seems to me that in some portion of the URA, you are asking to build a road.
Asking to what, Peter?
To build a road in layman's terms.
It needs some kind of foundation. That's one thing I think. I spent time on the farm, there's gonna be traffic there, not just pedestrian traffic, but supply traffic, and it can't be just dirt.
So are we saying that if this were not to be, we weren't here for this as it is today, and if the applicant was coming here from the beginning and saying, I'm a farm, and part of my farming activities is, feed is brought in by 18-wheelers, if you will. I need a road to provide for an 18-wheeler to come into my farm for my farming activity. They could possibly have come in front of us for a declaration. So I think that's where.
I'm just trying
Wanted to know what-
See, he's better than me, but I'm just saying I need someone.
That could have been something that could have occurred. We're kind of going ahead of backwards now and getting to the same place,
Okay.
so.
Just so that's
Clear
clear,
out there.
to be frank, I'm not happy.
I think the definition of farming might be large enough to say, you have animals on there, I use them for something, and it. Right, whatever what would have happened in that hypothetical approach from the applicant in front of us, they could have come in front of us for a declaratory ruling and saying that this is a necessity for the farm uses.
Okay, we did determine that it qualifies as a farm.
Well, I do have a declaratory ruling that states differently.
I'm just saying,
Well, can I, let's,
this is all hypothetical, because we're not, we don't need to declare it one way or the other. I'm just saying that.
let's, so since we're talking out loud, my understanding of the agricultural exemption is that it doesn't stay with the land. It stays with a person asks for an agricultural exemption.
I was
We're
listed.
not here for that now.
It stays with
Well,
the activity.
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand, but we just had someone.
I was the activity that came back in 2014. I was the activity.
Okay, any further questions or comments, Commissioner?
I just have one comment. You know,
Okay.
bringing live animals and children over a very hard surface without good drainage is dangerous. So I'm not as scientific as some of you are, but this will allow some drainage to go through. And I think that's significant.
Okay, Commissioner Bowen.
I'm good, but I see that Tim needs to say something. He's had his hand up for a little while.
How, I don't see, how do I know that?
We can't
I can't see that, I'm sorry, I, to just,
I didn't want to yell out.
okay.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to make 2 points. One to Commissioner Hood's initial question regarding removal of the millings. My recommendation was to address the removal of the millings in this area that we're looking at on Mr. Kenny's drawing. And at this time, related to the violation, is not going to deal with any other millings elsewhere on site. The reason for removal, as I specified in the staff recommendation for partial removal, was really to get the bulk of the millings out that could become destabilized when the Sasko Brook exceeds its banks, which Ms. Caruso has described on the record at previous meetings, is a common occurrence. So I think, as I explained in the memo, that once the bulk is removed and the remaining 6 inches or less is compacted mechanically or with vehicular traffic, I think there's then stable and becomes less of a threat to wetlands and watercourses on site and off site. The second point I'd like to make, which was discussed earlier, was in the area of the driveway, and I agree with Commissioner Fain to, I think it's a good idea to remove those parking spaces. My only concern, as I also specified in the staff recommendation, was to increase a planted buffer in that location with shrubs instead of trees, in the event that in the future that bridge is going to face additional permits for reconstruction. To that extent, I want to point out that a bridge replacement in a regulatory floodway is not going to be fast, cheap, or easy in front of this agency. You have to end up dealing with the Army Corps on the federal level, and I would assume also with state DEP as well. So that's a huge lift that wouldn't occur anytime soon. So instead of planting trees in that area, my recommendation was to increase the buffer capacity in the former driveway on the land side of the bridge with shrubs.
Thank you, Tim.
Thank
Any
you.
comments or response to that or anything like that?
It's consistent with what we talked about.
Yeah.
Students, but I still think some trees along the Sasko Brook are necessary because the trees provide cover and it helps.
Right.
Sasko Brook is a marginally trout river and it will help with thermal impacts.
Control the temperature.
So this is a substantial improvement. Okay. If that's it, then I'll ask the applicant and the representatives to step aside for a moment. And I'll finish off the public hearing. Is there anybody online or in this room that would like to come forward and speak in support of this application? Sorry, no, in support of this application. All right. Anybody here or online, and if you're here, come up one at a time, that would like to speak in opposition to this application, and please give us your name and address if you do so.
Hello.
My name's Bob Cardello. I got 6 copies of stuff I quickly put together earlier today. I don't know if it's gonna be helpful or not. I'm
Excuse me,
gonna,
what is your address?
All
I'm
the
an
same.
abutting neighbor, 218 Riders Lane. I'm also a local architect.
Are there 6 identical packets or?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
Um. Good evening. Thank you, for giving me a moment. I'll sure let's be brief, but, sounds like it's been a long road for you guys, and I'm sorry for coming in late.
Okay. That's why this is a public hearing. You can present what you'd like and we will take it into consideration.
Okay, well, as I mentioned, I'm a local architect, so I'm in front of commissions like yourself all the time, not yours necessarily. But every town's different, right? Every town's got a buffer, a regulated area, and there's sort of an assumption you can make, like if with a reasonable compensation with plantings or buffers, you know, you can make a good argument with talented people like Mr. Kenny coming in and demonstrating that this has no adverse effect to the water course. In this case, I don't really know petroleum-based asphalts. I did Google it earlier and looked at it and did some research online. And I heard some pretty scary stuff, like crushed asphalt has obviously a lot more exposed surface area to it. And frankly, a lot of the damage has probably already been done, but it happens continuously over time. So this whole idea of leaving a binder coat or whatever is bad.
And you have the experience in this from your profession because you're an architect and you dealt with it? Or is this something you got off the internet?
I'll confess, I'm not an environmental scientist. And most of what I'm talking about as it relates to that, I found online
Okay.
today.
So what is it that you're showing us with this information that affects this application?
So I just find it ironic, and my question is maybe back to you. This is a unique property, right? In that you have 100-foot buffer, is that correct? Regulated area. And this entire property is obviously within that 100 feet. In fact, it's within, there's really nowhere to go. How have you dealt with applications like this in the past?
Okay, we're here to hear evidence that you want that's in opposition to it.
Yes.
But every issue and every vote that we've made in the past is public record. You can go and look at that yourself.
So maybe I could phrase it a different way. Does this board find it acceptable for this business to put 42 parking spaces in a residential neighborhood?
Well, that's what their application is before us. They presented their information. We've asked our questions and now I'll ask, a commissioner can answer if you so chooses.
I'd love.
I would just say that we only can look at the environmental impact. If there's a zoning question that would have to be referred to zoning, we're not approving parking space. We're approving, we're trying to remediate the disturbance. We're trying to do, we don't have any jurisdiction over, parking. And I don't believe in their application. I think they showed, and maybe I should speak for them, they showed, Bill lined it at parking, but I think what they're trying to do is create circulation on the property.
Yeah, thank you.
I heard that just a minute ago, but 42 parking spaces, that's not circulation. You wanted circulation or turnaround spaces, you could do it in less square footage than what's shown on Bill's plan. Or less square footage than what's the violation, what she did on the property. Is that true? And to your point about the farm road, I think there's other bases, I can say this, like there are other natural materials that are used in those instances that don't include petroleum-based products.
Okay, what else?
I also have I am struggling to understand the topography a bit. I think Mr. Fain pointed out that this is pretty flat. If anything, the topography, the natural topography, which is the only thing we have shown on the plans, shows it kind of running from the structures to Merwin's Lane. I don't see any new proposed topography where it shows runoff the way it was described by Mr. Kenny. Has that been discussed?
Mr. Kenny provided the information, showed us, and it's in here, there's maps that show topographical lines.
But there are existing topographic lines. There's no proposed new topographical lines that would indicate a modification to the grades the way we described it, where there was.
I didn't see any modification to the grades, because he said it went from one grade 42 to 44, and he had arrows showing where it would go down into the buffer. So that's what I saw. If commissioners, you saw something
Like a natural,
different, yeah, just
that's already existing.
Yeah, I mean, I highlighted those grades on page 6 if you want to look. It's not something that would run away from, in fact, it would force that towards the brook.
Are you basing that on an elevation that you're reading or?
There's
Your intuition.
only two relevant topographic lines. That's 142 and 144.
Uh-huh.
Both of those are between the house, I'll call it, and Merwin's. The parking area is, I'll say, somewhere between those topography lines. But they run perpendicular to the length of this parking area. So how is the water being sheeted towards the pond or the way?
we'll have him answer that question.
I'd love to hear that. And I was really glad to hear about the site monitor. That's being stipulated as part of it. So during this remediation process, would it be unreasonable to ask for a timeline? Because I know that was a question that was asked, but instead of getting kind of a vague.
Well, applicants have timelines within the regulations, so I mean, the permits go for, I think,
No, it's not 5 years.
5 years. So it's 5 years, and that's the timeframe that they have.
Yeah, probably as simply expresses the violation. I think we can compel and speed up quicker, but that's something that we need to discuss. About the.
So, yeah, we can talk about timelines, and you brought it up, so.
I love that. Yeah, the only reason why I ask is, again, I'm an abutting neighbor. She has, I don't know, 17 or 18 buildings, and she has this holiday, Halloween hayride thing that she leaves up all year round that I get the pleasure of looking at. So she tends not to. I know it's not your thing. I get it. It's just.
Okay.
I would love it if you could,
Yeah, our jurisdiction really is just up to that 100-foot URA, and that's,
the buffer,
that's the limit of the jurisdiction that we.
which is entirely within.
You're right. Correct about that. They intersect from one side to the other.
Yeah, I'm just surprised. I was in front of this committee 20 years ago at my own house, flooding house. And I was 90 feet. And so I had the site monitor. I posted a bond with the town for $10,000. It delayed my permitting process and all of that. It's 90 feet away. So, and I'm not doing this out of spite. Did it, I'm doing it just because I'm a little surprised that you could do this, and it seems like she's getting away with it, but, yeah, that's it. Thank you.
We could certainly ask Tim to investigate the status with the DEP in terms of asphalt tailings, what they're classifying as. If you haven't done that already.
Well, I think the point you made was interesting. I'm not a scientist, but.
Yeah.
You talked about the increased surface area? I don't know, but that sounds like a reasonable question to ask. Don't know what the answer is.
I know you're gonna vote tonight, correct?
We don't necessarily.
But the material that I printed out that I'm not gonna read to you because I can't pronounce half the words, but I'm happy to send it to Tim, so that he could share it with the board, so you could read it. It's pretty scary stuff that comes out of that. So I don't know. Thank you.
Just because it's pulled from the internet doesn't mean it's
But I
not
think,
quality material. Everything,
Yes, sir.
I wouldn't want you to.
That's sir.
no,
Oh,
no,
sorry.
I was gonna say, I think that's why Tim was talking about changing that area to be more compacted, because you're absolutely right. The more surface area that you have, you're gonna have more contact with that, with the water goes through.
Correct.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else here? No, there we go. In opposition, name and address, please.
Yeah, sure. Hi. In opposition, my name is Rob Powers. I live at 326 Riders Lane in Fairfield. Riders Lane abuts the property that we're talking about today. As many of you don't know, but Tim Bishop does know, I'm a little bit of a wonk on the water in the area that we live. I'm the person who has been constantly monitoring people taking water out of the river, out of Sasko, and a number of the rivers in that particular area. In fact, right outside of property we're talking about, a couple of months ago, I was in an altercation. The police were called. It's important to note that they were tanking illegally water out of the river. So I called Tim, asked him whether it was legal or not. The answer was no. They had to get their permit. And now the town will get paid for the money that they should get paid for people taking water out of it. I wanted to set that as a baseline for why I'm here today to talk about the water as it relates to where we live in our particular area. I'm speaking in general for the neighbors that live in the abutting area, so Riders Lane, Merwin's Lane, and also behind the property, which is on Reading, which abuts up against it. And as you've seen from a number of the photos today, the water is not just the Sasko Brook. There are a number of ponds. We were told today that one was man-made, which is right by the driveway, but there's also a very large pond that is also in the back of the yard. Attached to that pond is a whimsical Halloween thing that happens. And why is it important that I bring it up? Because it surrounds the water, and we should be thinking about the water in that area and any other things that happen around that particular water. There are 17 properties that basically touch the properties around the pilot house. Of those 17, 2 use town water brought to us by Aquarian. That means 15 of us use wells. Use well water for drinking water, for our animals, for everything that happens in our neighborhood. So as you can imagine, living in the neighborhood with not only that water source, plus the pond, and now the asphalt aggregate that now sits upon the land that now drains in multiple directions. And it doesn't matter how we're going to fix it. We need to make sure that the monitor is there. And to Bob Cardello's point, we need to monitor the height of what is there today and what the height will be when it's removed. I have a supposition in my own mind that it's not going to be what we all think it's going to be, which is we're going to take it, it's going to move it away from all of the wetlands and everything that happens there. I don't know that that's going to happen, but we're hoping, as you said, that the monitor will help us do that. I have a question for everybody in the room today, which is, if not the inland waterlands team that's worried about the millings, is it town planning and zoning that's now worried about the millings that are not associated with this particular? So everything that's not removed, who's responsible for that?
It's not counting its own.
It's.
I could answer that.
Go ahead, Tim, if you know, yeah.
No, that would be town planning and zoning.
It would be, okay. Town plan.
The zoning enforcement officers already been aware since day one,
Okay, great.
and a special permit will be required for any material deposited over 250 cubic yards.
So that would require from the town planning and zoning a permit for the dropping of those millings and whatever happens there. So we should expect that I can go to that department tomorrow morning and find that application.
Yes.
Okay. right? And then whatever the parking space is or the physical square footage, that'll all be in that, right?
Regulation relative to parking.
Yeah, that would be what, yes, you can go and
TPZ.
find out what.
So I'm just saying, you guys are now saying, we're now responsible. So
Yeah, at that 100 mark,
after that, it's
Right, yeah.
town planning and zoning.
Yeah.
Great, thank you very much. So the question that I really have is, if this 100 feet of buffer and everything in the wetlands is what it is, have we considered what the last 6 to 8 months have done to the actual water table, the aquifers and everything in that particular arena? Is that
soil fortunate, we deal with that all the time when somebody does something like this. We just happen to be, we're here now to try to see how can we.
remediate it?
Yes.
And so the question I have, I want everybody to be aware, is the water safe? Does it affect our wells? Does it affect the aquifers? And I'm lucky, I think my stuff goes down 240 feet. But does the water that comes in that has now been affected by the millings really make it safe? Do we know? And while you may not know, I think the public has a right to understand what has happened and the damage that is caused, because the river flows from that particular thing all the way out to Long Island Sound. Yes? So I would question, does everybody who's along that river have the same problem that I'm talking about today? Has everybody thought about all the water and what's happened to it downstream? It's not just our neighborhood and the 17 people, the 15 who use the wells, it's everybody that goes downriver. Just want the public to know that.
It's on the record.
Everybody. Okay. My next point is, I want to make sure that not only the monitor that's going to monitor the removal and the remediation around the 100 feet, what's going to happen and who's going to moderate what's going to happen in a year from now or 2 years from now, when, and hopefully doesn't take 5 years to get it all done, all this work is completed. Are we going to have an annual look at the water table? Are we going to have an annual look at what's happening with the vegetation? Are we going to have an annual look at what's happening? In my opinion, I think we should make sure that we look at everything that needs to be remediated within that 100 feet. I will take care of town planning and zoning, and we should be having it monitored every 6 months, every year, whatever. And it should be looked at to make sure that it's not becoming worse or hasn't removed and gone in the other direction. So I want to, as you can imagine, as a neighbor who's concerned, have a checks and balances that goes in place for everything that happens around the farm. Why do you ask, like, why do I like trying to take on the world with regards to the farm? Bob said something I think was really important before, and that comment was, I'm not trying to do any of this out of spite. We live there. And Doreen over here, who's the owner of the farm, chuckled and said, oh yeah. So I want to talk next, which is the next part.
This is the wetlands agency. We want to know about impacts. We don't want to know about neighbor issues.
Understood. So I want to just make sure that you are all aware of the things that are going on in that particular arena, around all of the wetlands, around all the water. There is constant digging in that yard. There are pictures that Tim and I have both looked at over time that show digging that happens, and it's less than 100 feet from the back pond. So it's not nefarious. It's just something that goes on. And when Tim and others approached the property, they were asked to leave. So I want to make sure that you all know that what you're dealing with is not the smiles and things that happen here in the room, but the facts of what happens on the property is not as it seems to you in front today.
You're not precluded from continuing to talk to Tim, and then any violations that occur, Tim is our agent and he would issue violations, and then there would be a new thing in front of us and we would have to deal with it.
Right.
So that doesn't stop because of this one application.
Understood.
So this is a specific application for a specific thing. We'd like to take as much information as we can from both those that are in favor and those that are opposed. And then we will deliberate and we'll make a decision. That doesn't then stop from neighbors or Tim from going out there. And if he sees something or if somebody calls in and says, hey, I think there's a big bulldozer and they're moving the pond from that area to over there, whatever, as an example, that would be a violation and it would come before us.
And that's needed.
Yeah.
It's pretty funny how.
And now, the other thing I should briefly mention is that there's only so much that any entity can do, right? So we have deadlines or timeframes that we have jurisdiction over something or a permit expires, if you will, if no work is done. And in this case, it's 5 years. And there's a time frame for us to make sure the work that was presented in front of us was completed. At that point, it stops. If there's a violation because they added on 3 years from now and raised the grade by another 4 inches, that's a separate issue that would need to come in front of us. Okay?
Understood.
Okay.
So is this committee clear on exactly what will happen to the property moving forward before you make a decision?
It's what the applicant has provided us. He mentioned that the millings will be compacted to about an inch or 2 or whatever it might be. And that's what we expect because that's what was presented in front of us.
Okay.
And it'll be managed by the site monitor.
And there's a monitor who will say, this is 4 inches.
Yeah.
This doesn't comply with the requirements that the commission allowed you to do.
Thank you.
But I did hear, if, I kind of heard your concern was, I kind of felt that you were saying you were concerned about the overall time frame. That you feel there's damage now and there's damage potentially ongoing. When is it going to be done?
I mean, I think it goes back to the question Bob had asked, which
I just got the impression, which I think is fair, that you just want some sort of, that it's not gonna go on forever. That there's gonna be problems. I mean, I think there's gonna be problems with finance. Everybody's hearing that. But I also heard you saying, that's great, but, because I do agree with you, concerned about the downstream, yes. I heard you, I'm sure everybody did, I agree with you there, absolutely. There's a concern about, just a generalized concern. And there is a generalized concern with me about the time frame. I can't influence it, but yes, you were heard there.
Tim,
Which is why I'm glad you come, you know, and
a quick question. Are you aware of any regulation that would classify this material as hazardous and not be allowed to be used in the application that they're proposing?
No, there's, it's a petroleum's non-hazardous material, at least in the, state's remediation standard regulations.
So it's allowed to be used
DP as far as. Go ahead.
and go ahead, finish your sentence.
When there's, applicability of the RSRs, for direct exposure criteria, and pollutant mobility criteria, there's some consideration for runoff of polycyclic aromatic hydrocarbons or PHs or semi-volatile organics, that is known contaminant that in asphalt millings, that there is some leeway, or I'll call it flexibility in those regulations as long as in a remediation case can prove that those compounds came from an asphalt parking area. My concern is that if those millings were transported by water into Sasko Brook, which is like I said, my biggest concern. But as far as any leaching, I think that's somewhat negligible as far as impacts. And I'm not sure if the Mr. Powers or Mr. Cardello smelled. I mean, I would say immediate impacts upon deposition when the violation first occurred from the aromatic hydrocarbons, just like when they're paving roads, or the materials first deposited. The odor was very strong in the air, so a lot of that was off gassing. But as the granular breaks down into smaller pieces, that those hydrocarbons of semi-volatiles can become more mobile in smaller pieces. So
The question was,
that's my
thank you.
Thank you.
thank you.
Okay.
I have one last.
Yes,
Comment?
Yep.
So I think, Peter, you had mentioned something about finances and it could take 5 years potentially.
I don't know.
No, I'm not, that's
I'm just recognizing
You
your
recognize
concern,
the
and I
point
think for
about-
the record, it's very
about
valid.
finances. So earlier in today's conversation, you all had the conversation, if this applicant had come to you and asked to do this, they would have required and needed the finances to actually say, I want to make these changes, these are the things that I want to do, and I have the money to do it.
I don't think that's
No,
correct.
I-
No.
Same-
We're
same-
applying for a permit. The length of the permit is 5 years, period. Whether they have the money now or the end of the 5 years, none of our concern.
Sorry, okay. And where that point was going was the idea that we would ask to reduce the cost of the $11,650. The town of Fairfield has now found that something was done incorrectly here for a number of hours. That the people in this town, a number of meetings at the property and so on. And I would ask that the town impose whatever fines they need to do. And the situation about the inside baseball with Balloon's finances is her problem. And it should not be, we're gonna give a lending hand out.
We've already dealt with that at the
Yeah,
last. So that's over and done with.
There was a
Yeah.
decision,
Yeah, there was a decision made. Yeah.
and that decision was,
Public.
okay, and I'll.
He can go on the record and find out what the decision was.
You go to our town's website
Yeah,
for the
I'd like to
conservation.
know that I didn't see the answer that.
We moved on it and, yeah. Thank you. Okay, thank you.
Mr.
The applicant, one of the questions was about the grading. If you wouldn't mind, just a quick comment on that. I think if I recall, it was saying that they seem to be parallel and it wouldn't go towards the center swale, it would go towards the road. That's not about right.
It's, Mr. Kenny.
Yeah.
Answers, it's.
And also, just quickly, I have the Tim's staff report here, where he has recommended conditions, and some of the conditions are helpful to answer some of the other questions. If you see special condition number 8, it requires an as-built plan. So in addition to a monitor being there, you can look at the topography, and the topography that's shown on the drawings is the pre-fill. So we have those grades and they're substantially similar. This is an aerial photo. I can't turn this one. But it's, we'll go back to my drawing shortly, but the topography on this town GIS with aerial is similar. The contours really run at a 45 degree. So they're not parallel with and they're not perpendicular to 45, but the water is flowing towards, it's not flowing towards the brook.
And even if it were, you were proposing substantial vegetative buffers between any of these new activities and the wetlands, correct?
There's one contour.
Is that enough to be considered a grade or slow the sheeting of wall? Which was like- that's the original question.
Maybe it's best asked by Mr. Kenny, but it's vegetative buffer strips are considered to be a best management practice.
Right.
Stormwater.
Any regrading that was done, I think was the depositing of the materials to begin with, change the contour.
So with the contours to envision the direction of flow of water, you always look to go perpendicular with the contours. And when you have a bump like this, it's an indication of a ridge line. So this water is flowing this way. And, then it turns and goes in, and the ridge line, so is coming.
Right,
Where-
and that's
where
why we
we
had the
talked.
comments about that little. Right. Or sliver of
Yeah,
those
yeah.
5
Right.
parking lots. Right, okay.
And then, that 420 goes around like that. So this water's going this way. There's actually 2 420 contour lines in here. You can see 2 lines under there. Oops. explain the whole thing, sorry. But, so the water at this point, it's going that direction and it's going. There's a. So,
Let me ask you a couple other questions. There's no, with the grading you have and the addition you're proposing, there's no areas where where you're potentially concentrating flow or taking it to a catch basin or it's developing any sort of point of storage.
That's correct. No, it seems like it's based on the, yeah, it's just gonna flow right into that central, island thing. And even if it were to somehow, I can't see it, but if it were to go towards the brook, there's still that buffer. Even on the top, right where the 142s meet, if it would just happen to go there, you got a whole buffer area there too. I doubt it'll go there, but.
and these slopes, these contours are, or at least this one and this one is about 100 feet apart. They're
Yeah.
2 foot contours, so it's 2% slope, which is a standard slope for a paved surface, for minimum pitch that you'd want to have.
So,
With regard to, if you go back to that, this photo is helpful in showing how there was, 2 driveways. You can see the 2 driveways here coming into the property. And that now, if we go back to here, the turnaround. So for a tractor trailer, you need about a 90-foot diameter radius, and we've got about 100 feet from side to side. So yes, I showed stripes. There's not going to be stripes, but it was just to see if there's an event, which are very infrequent, that how many cars might be able to, but it's really on a day-to-day level when trucks come through here or once a week or whatever they are, more frequent than the events, that's for sure. So to show that we, you're not gonna have cars parked there because when the trucks are coming for delivery, they need to pull into those spaces in order to be able to make that turn. So it's a hybrid use. It's used primarily for access and then occasionally, on a daily level, very few spaces are used. Gotcha. And then
Any other questions,
so,
commissioners?
yeah, one point that was brought up that I'm unclear on, so if anybody can help me, that would be great. What's the frequency of the testing of water in this town, of the brook? And is that something that is automatically done and can be monitored with respect to the impact on the water of the millings?
Tim, would you happen to know that?
There's a Sasko Creek Watershed Abatement Committee. They're focused they're not focused on these other, they're mostly focused on the brooks impact of the shellfish beds and E. coli, and I think they do E. coli testing quite frequently because the Sasko Brook is on the 303 list. It's an impaired water body, so they do monitor it. The EP occasionally does comprehensive samples of different brooks in the state, and you have to go on their websites. They do post it, but they typically just do chemical and biological and physical analysis. They don't usually do the hazardous waste. That's unusual. It's probably, they won't only do that. That was
Well, Tim said it wasn't really categorized as.
no. I think the question is that how often is it tested for hazardous waste?
Right.
And I would say it's tested quite often, but not for that material.
But Jerry, that's not an official town agency that tests the water.
Yeah,
is it?
Quasi.
The town doesn't perform anything. I'm
Okay,
on the Sasko Brook Pollution Abatement Committee, and that focus in Sasko Brook is strictly a COI. The town does not perform any other analysis on water bodies or water courses in town. If there was a consent order violation from DEP, then groundwater and surface water monitoring would be a requirement, but there would have to be a documented spill, or it should be in a program under 133X or Y.
Okay,
okay.
thank you.
Helpful, thank you.
Anything further,
Thank
Commissioner?
No, but if there's no other questions, I'll make a motion to close the public hearing.
Anybody second that motion? Okay, so Commissioner Fain's motion, Commissioner Luxinger's seconds. All in favor to close? Okay. All right. We want to deliberate now?
You wanna go through the rest of the agenda and
Okay, we'll go through it. Okay. Yes.
Chairman, can I just make a point, if I may?
Yes.
I just wanted to point, the agency to, the, statement of consistency provided by engineering as it relates to, our regulations for, on-site stormwater management. The, engineer Santiago pointed out, the stormwater management of this, area with the new material, which would be compacted. And my recommendation memo also just wanted to highlight and draw everyone's attention to our own regulations that would involve the 10-year pre-development storm and I'm sorry, 10-year post with the 2-year pre, and have that discussion whether that's a concern that's required under every other application before the agency and the department at the staff level, whether it's applicable or will be enforced, I should say, under this permit application.
we'll also take that up when we discuss the.
Yeah, we can,
Yeah.
yeah. Okay, we'll have to put it in our discussions, Tim.
No problem. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's just, we'd have an opportunity to respond to that, but I understand the hearing's closed.
I think we can handle it.
Yeah, okay,
Okay, thank you.
thank you. All right, so, moving on. Go to number 7, his fee waiver requests. One is, oh, sorry, 6. Moving too fast. Applications for discussion. Number 1, declaratory ruling, Route 2644 Bronson Road, map 225, parcel 20. Request for construction of a 3-sided farm operations within a regulated area. Staff recommends approval of the declaratory ruling petition. Any commissioners have any issues with this?
Myself, I've been involved.
You've been involved, and
I'm going to excuse myself also as an abutting.
okay, so we have Commissioner Boucher, Commissioner Fain recusing himself. And if that's the case, we can have Commissioner Vastallo and Commissioner Rosenthal for this decision as full members to discuss and rule. And vote. Okay, is anybody here for, I guess we're just gonna do it on our own. Sarah?
Yes, no one is here. It's a kind of 3-sided barn, so one of them is open for storage for equipment for cultural use. There are horses there. So since it's for farm operations, it would fall under declaratory ruling.
Okay.
I think they are going for a variance with, not that we're looking at that part of it, but I think it's going through TPZ for
Okay.
something too.
Any comments, questions? We all think it's gonna be for farm use? Yeah. All right, any motion to approve the declaratory ruling petition?
I'll make a motion.
Daphne's second. There we go. All in favor? Aye, all around. Thank you. Okay. Now it's the 7th. Fee waiver request. Now one CWP -25-0070 out the Valley, 76 Country Road, Assessors Map 77, parcel 333. Corrective action for the construction of a patio and shed within the regulated area without a wetland permit, with associated stormwater retention system to be installed. Applicant requests fee waiver of $1,400 corrective action fee. Staff recommends the agency discuss fee waiver with site-specific violations. Dabney, if you wouldn't mind, I have a conflict. If you would you be comfortable doing it online, or would you want Rick to do it?
Sure, either way.
Okay, well, you're vice, so you please do it, and I'm gonna recuse myself.
Okay.
I have a conflict.
Just going to watch the hockey game.
Uh, Tim, do you have anything to add to this?
I do, thank you. The reason why this reads this way on the agenda was because it was a violation for patio installation. There are on-site wetlands. I think that's a concern with one, the construction activity of the installation, but then also no stormwater detention. Patio exceeds the 200 square foot threshold for which requires stormwater management. And if everyone is familiar with the on-site wetland location, it is also adjacent to the 980 High Street application, which was high profile. So this on-site system is also hydraulically connected to that. So of course, having most of the commissioners been through that application process once or twice, this area is a sensitive one and of concern and important. So I did make that recommendation that to discuss a fee waiver request in light of a on-site application.
Great, thank you.
I'm sorry, on-site violation, not application.
Yeah.
Thank you.
What's the justification for a fee waiver, though? It's a violation, right?
I think
That's the discussion, yeah.
Is there a justification, right?
It's not an exorbitant fee.
Well,
Okay, you have to.
No, I'm just saying it would, they're claiming financial hardship. Yeah, I'm just telling you, that is the reason.
I think what I would draw attention to, says the request is not made likely, it was not intentional. Intent is not part of determining for a violation. So that's just not relevant to me, and I don't think this is in the spirit of what a waiver, fee waivers are intended for.
I agree with,
agree with that.
I can't see a reason for it.
So I'll make a motion to deny the fee waiver.
I'll second it.
All commissioners? That's denied. Thank you.
All right.
All right,
You're back.
folks, time back. And we are now on to Roman numeral 8, bills and bond releases. Number 1, IWP 2006-07-05, Cardinus Construction, 995 South Pine Creek Road, map 232, parcel 100, construction of a new dwelling with associated site work within a regulated area. Request of our friend Walter Stapleton for final bond release of $15,100. Staff recommends partial bond release of $15,100.
It's actually a final bond release, it should
gonna
say.
say,
I
yeah, how does that
wrote
be
partial, but it should be a final.
Okay.
That's like for our recommendation.
I thought my math was bad.
Forget it.
Final. I'm just reading here.
That was me.
All right.
Discussion?
Yeah, everything, all the conditions of the application or of the approval have been met and they are ready for bond release.
All right.
I move that we
Ted moves that we
release
release
the bond.
and Sal seconds. All in favor? Aye. All right. And number 2 is IWP 2016-17-06 Jeffrey White, 1118 and 1176 Westport Turnpike, map 214, parcel 16A and 16B. 2-lot subdivision and construction of new dwellings and associated site work within a regulated area. Request of William County Associates for partial bond release of 42,404 of original 53,006. Yep, staff recommends partial bond release of the 42,404. And
So the two houses are up, everything is almost done. There's just a bit of site work that needs to be completed on this, so they were hoping to get part of the bond back. It is a very substantial bond and we still have over 10,000 for final site work. Seems
are there
appropriate.
plantings and things that we want to monitor?
There were not, it wasn't a full planting plan because this was approved back in 2016 before we were doing a lot of these
Okay.
planting plans.
Okay.
So there was there's conservation easement on it,
Okay.
but there weren't specific plantings in there.
And you're comfortable with the remaining number, the 10,000 that were, whatever that we're
Yes.
holding? Yeah, okay, commissioners?
I recommend we, follow the staff recommendations.
Okay, for the 42,404.
42,404.
Any second to that? Ted, look in your seconds, all in favor? Okay, that's all around, very good.
Just a thanks for mentioning monitoring the plans. I was glad that you're. Clearly, I'm.
And numeral 9, legal enforcement actions. Number 1 is an update, Muddy Puddle LLC, 373 Cross Highway, map 170 lot
Appropriate name.
36. Conducting a significant activity, filling in of wetlands, of inland wetlands in a regulated area without a permit. Are we just getting an update here, Sarah, or Tim, or whoever?
I don't know if.
Yes, actually, my only update is that I've not had any correspondence or communications with Attorney Russo. So I will follow up with him on where their status is. I know they've come before the agency and are working on it, but I have not received anything.
That's why it's here. That's why it's an update. At the same time, Attorney Russo's been in front of us I will extend him the courtesy. I think he's very good at what he does. So I don't think there's anything here other than just getting an update. Okay? And same thing with number 2, it's Norwood, 120 Wakeman Lane, map 246, lot 5C. Significant activities, deposition of material, wetlands diversion, et cetera, without a permit. We all know. Anything there, Tim?
Well, that's scheduled for.
Nothing there. The only update will be provided during executive session.
The other. Right. And when, we talked about that. When are we doing that? When do we want to do that?
Notice for tonight.
It is on the agenda tonight, under section 11.
Okay. So we're excised for those who don't.
But is the Attorney Perot joining for that?
Sorry, Commissioner Fain?
Is our
Attorney
attorney
Perot?
joining us for that?
He will not, no.
Oh, okay, all right, so that's why it's here, because usually it's usually in the beginning, we do it and then attorneys can leave, but if he's not here, then it's fine. All right, very good.
You wanna do that now?
No, we'll finish. At this point, yeah, that'll be the last thing. 10, thank you. Staff report, number 1, reports from the Conservation Department. A, CWC permit applications received 9. B, notice of violations issued 2, and C, bond release 1. Anything with that, or just, is that good enough? And
Those are just numbers. Sarah can attest to the amount of applications that have come in the last couple of days. So they're flowing in steadily, so should be hitting a peak
so these are
again.
Are there any, what should we expect in August if we're off July? Do we have anything that we need to
There
worry
won't
about?
be any significant applications that I am aware of yet in the pipeline.
Okay.
Sarah, can you think of any?
There might be a couple for new dwellings because we got demo permits that came in.
Nothing like
but
significant. I mean,
Nothing,
just a
nothing
thing.
for brand new developments. It's more
Yeah.
demo.
Okay.
builds.
Well, that's good.
Um,
That's thinking ahead, folks. So it might
Can't
be a
think of
lighter
anything
summer
big.
this year.
That'd be great.
All right, number 2 is sidewalks for June.
There shouldn't really.
There shouldn't be award for July, I guess, because we're dealing with nothing in July. There's no meeting, so there's nothing. And then if we need to do anything for August, what maybe we can do is, maybe that last week of July, you can do it by email if there's particular, once the agenda's ready.
Sure.
We can maybe do it that way. Okay, folks? Good.
Okay.
Okay. All right, now, we
Do
can,
you wanna go back
Yeah.
to,
yeah,
Pilot House?
I would like to go back to Pilot House to discuss, and I think we have enough information to vote tonight if we'll agree. And then, once we're done with that, we will then we will then go into executive session, which is different. Right. And then we come back out and we adjourn. Okay? Okay. All right, well, who wants to go first?
Okay. Is there a reasonable condition that we can add with respect to water testing?
I don't think so.
Before and after, there's nothing, no,
It's a hit or miss, the situation.
because I certainly understand his concern about the water and the impact of the, you know, the asphalt on the.
But
water,
I,
and
see, I look at it,
people know that.
there's roads all over the, I mean, it's
You'll
not.
never be able to separate
Yeah.
that, you never able to.
You could also say, well, take all the PFAs out of the water too, so it's too late.
Well, but, and also I just want to add that it's also impossible to isolate a certain part of a water course and test it for impurities, because it could certainly be coming from activity upstream as well.
Yeah, I was thinking maybe the pond, if that showed any.
And, Tim also said there's a certain level that's, because it's an asphalt product, that's allowed, and, you know, I don't think that's an area that we wanna start trying to.
All right, I just wanted to raise.
We have no expertise in it, we wouldn't know what to do with the results, and, I just think it's a bad precedent to send a bad road.
I don't think we can go down that road. Yeah, we can't go down.
I can understand his concern.
If they had dump truck and that the millings loosely fell into the water, that is huge.
I think that's deep then.
Yeah, that's a
correct,
huge thing.
Right.
If they had actually
Yeah,
dumped it.
then it's discharge into a, you know, it's same as
Right,
anything
came
other
pretty
thing.
close. Came pretty close.
So, I mean, when we saw it, you know, that's a lot. That's all going
It's
away.
very high, right, no, I
And
understand that.
I think Tim was clear that said, once it's compacted, either mechanically or automobile, whatever, it's really just like it's skimming a rock, if you will. It's not.
Right, that was the only question I had.
Yeah.
The rest of the plan, I think is good.
Yeah,
You know,
okay.
I've got no problem with
I
the.
didn't realize they were gonna try to take it all away, so it's
So you
a
were pleasantly surprised.
Herculean undertaking, and it's gonna be very expensive.
Yeah.
I don't have, you know, it's not unusual to use those materials for stabilized driveways,
Yeah.
what this is. What if they came in and paved it, would we say, no, you can't pave it? No, this is.
Right. And I just want to piggyback on that comment, because I think it's important to recognize that statement, and that the roads around that farm use oil and stone and compacted millings all of the time. Those roads are constantly being repaved. It's not really up to us to determine whether or not applications for paving that are approved by the state are, that's not really our purview, right? To say it is or it isn't good for the environment. It's really determined on a state level.
Yeah.
Right, okay.
You know, I'll be honest, I'm really uncomfortable, and I said I voiced that, and I also felt that the public comments, for me intuitively, I think very differently. And I would be very hard to convince that this is not environmentally unsound. However, I
It's
hear
fair,
voice-
Commissioner, that's why you're here. And
what I'm trying to say is I heard Tim, and I heard I hear Dabney, and I hear Jay, and it's very persuasive. I only just like to point out that it's hard for me, but what I hear back coming from educated voices, such as I just mentioned, is very good It's persuasive.
It's a very
What
unfortunate.
Abby's talking about is totally logical. It's like, another 30 feet, I don't know what it is, but it's kind of Abby, you're making me realize it's like, at some point, you have to let go because it's not logical to hold on to.
It's an unfortunate
I don't know what,
situation, but
gotta stop talking.
it's gonna cost this woman a tremendous amount of money and she's not gonna benefit.
Dumped all that stuff to start with.
No, she's-
Place going to the dogs.
Sorry.
Somebody's,
I don't see-
somebody's attention.
You're never gonna get all that material out there.
That was the squirrel that grew up.
And I think that they're doing a yeoman's job trying to address the
Yeah,
situation.
no, I agree.
I don't know what else they could do, you know.
The plan,
And again, the dichotomy between the two, well, let's just go with these folks, both of them, Muddy Puddle and Norwood versus, so.
And I think some of the.
In the initiation of it, was it a bad decision? It was a incredibly bad decision. Did she run and hide from us? I don't.
Got off to a bad
see
start, but
that.
she addressed this.
So,
So
and
she's been
she-
cooperative.
And I think there was history there that has nothing to do with it.
yeah.
So.
Yeah.
Well, and also for the benefit of one of the gentlemen that spoke during the public hearing, I also want to point out that even though Mr. Kenny's diagrams showed parking spaces, that's not really the intention here. The intention is not for parking. It is for these trucks to be able to get in there, and we're within 10 feet of what they really need to be able to get through that property. So just for the record, the express purpose for this is not necessarily parking, although I think that it improves their parking situation ultimately, especially for those events. That is not the purpose of this exercise.
I believe he also said that those won't be marked lines. He did that for just
That's right.
spacing purposes, illustration purposes.
That's right.
So, I mean, you're correct, Commissioner Bowen, that this is would be used more for an access road, if you will, for their deliveries and whatever it is that goes on at that.
Farm.
Yeah. So, if there's 5 events a year that they have and there's that amount of parking, it would be rare.
And just one other thing I want to just say and to put into the record, and I think it was Commissioner Fain that said this. I do take exception to editorializing our meetings and our process and the issues that we have already addressed and discussed and worked through prior or during public hearings. It's really not good form for us to entertain that kind of editorializing. So thank you, Commissioner Fain, for pointing that out.
No problem.
We're ready for motion.
Okay.
There's
I
a
have a
couple things I
question.
want to discuss, just, and then we can make a motion. And I think there were three things. We wanted to eliminate 2 of the parking spaces in the northwest corner by the Sesco Brook.
Yes.
We want to change the planting schedule so there's fewer
Perennial.
trees and more shrubs and more perennials. And the other thing was we need to address is there's a memo from the town engineer regarding compliance with our regulations regarding stormwater. It's kind of a muddy memo, Tim, because in one thing it said it complies and the other thing it said it doesn't. I thought that we were pretty much balancing the pre and post impervious areas and that we were pretty close to that. Can we work with the applicant and the engineer to make this work so they don't have to do stormwater management? I don't think the applicant has the
Well,
resources.
that was the point in my memo, was to just have the discussion on how the agency wants to approach that, because in accordance with our regulations, section 7.13, we have that requirement. So that's been unless there's a unique circumstance proven by the applicant for the regulations, that this agency has not been flexible with the applicability of that regulation.
Well, aren't they pretty much
So
balancing the impervious area? If we're taking some away, they're adding some.
I think it's a significant addition of future impervious, because that area was wooded and exposed soil whether it was parked on once or twice a year or a truck drove over it, it was not surface with compacted asphalt.
We could just add the condition that they need to address the town engineer's comments. Correct?
Yes, that's special condition number 7.
Okay.
Has the representative, Mr. Kenny, discussed, the special conditions with you? Have they said anything? Do they agree? I forgot to ask them. Are they on board with these conditions? Have they seen this?
I have not received any feedback.
Okay.
Why don't we
Right, off
just
of-
add that as a condition? If there's a problem, they can come back to it and we can discuss it.
Okay.
Staff conditions.
So, yeah, so I mean, I'm all for the staff conditions plus the addition. Before we go there,
Well, Sal had.
Commissioner.
Yeah, just
Rosell.
a clarification, excuse my ignorance, but so this is we are approving a permit for a remediation. Is there any does the agency have any tool to enforce this? So they've applied for this permit, but then according to what she said, they might not have the funds to ever
Well,
start
no,
the work.
then it dies.
Right.
So after 5 years, if they don't do the work, they gotta come back and do it again.
They would, this is an order. They're gonna have to do this work.
Yeah.
They're gonna have to do
Yeah.
this work.
Yeah.
They have
Because
fun-
I didn't know if we wanted to add a condition that the work should be performed within 2 years. I think we were.
Well, I think that was the
No, we
neighbor's
can do that.
concern, which I was just
Yeah.
trying to say, at least we hear you. And I think it was
Timeline.
legitimate concern to say,
But I'm not sure we have.
when.
Yeah, I don't think we do.
Enforce that.
Yeah.
That's
I don't-
changing.
In order, we can do it, but I think they want this.
That could also be enforced under the new ordinance that we have for finding power.
How is that? How would that work? Can we say something along the lines, if not done within 2.5 years from now, then we can impose.
I believe so, yes.
Really? Fine.
I think we
We
can.
could say
Okay.
agencies can condition it however they choose.
I'm more comfortable with that. Give them the time,
Right.
but know that there's.
Well, and that we could revisit the penalty
Right.
after 2 years if the work's not completed.
Do we want to say completed or initiated?
Initiated.
Initiated.
It's gotta have some,
Well, let's do both.
well, how about if we
You
do
don't need to.
initiate at 2 years and then, I don't know, look at it again at year 4?
We can't get,
I don't-
issue a 5-year permit and say it has to be done in 2 years. It's
No, initiated and then reviewed again at year 4,
Right, so-
something like that.
So something about a review of.
No?
I just worry that if it has, about the initiation at 2 years, if they're gonna say that means that they don't have to do anything for 2 years, when that stabilization, you know, I just worry
Yeah, no,
that
that-
that
now they don't.
area with this.
They don't have to
So-
do anything for 5 years.
No, I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying if we're gonna make a condition, I think that maybe we wanna tighten that up a little bit, so it doesn't seem like, oh, you can start in 2 years and then finish in 5 years, when our concern really is the fact that Sasko Brook it's gonna go over that bank and it's gonna take that asphalt into the water course.
That's why Commissioner Fain asked about starting before the rain season, I
Right.
think. Yeah.
Right,
So
so-
maybe that's where we want to go, right?
Right, so
Start before that
Commissioner
timeframe.
So ask for
I
initiation
think
of
Commissioner Rosenthal?
And I think that because this is a violation, we should have more leeway in the restrictions, of, what we're asking for them.
Right.
They didn't just come to us and ask for.
Right, it's not a permit.
It's not a permit,
It's
it's a
remediation.
violation.
Everyone would
What
ask for
kind of
it.
damage would we, not to us,
Precedent.
but how would it be if we say at the very least that 30 feet on at the 142 line along that has to be removed within a year? Can we do something like that?
I'd say sooner. I say anything.
Yeah, I think you could condition the permit however you choose. I share Commissioner O'Mahony's and Rosenthal's sentiment that this is somewhat urgent. We don't really have time to wait until the Sasko Brook sweeps half of the millings downstream. So I think a shorter initiation timeline is appropriate here.
Don't projects always have milestones?
Yeah.
Can we add
Okay.
like milestones?
So I'm good with that. So I think,
Fine with
what are
this.
we doing what's the short time frame you want?
Initiation
6
within
months.
6 months?
Oh,
Of
6
issuing,
months of material within the Sasko Brook floodplain needs to be removed.
I would be much more comfortable if it was moved that way.
Okay.
I just think that
the rain events that we have now.
The time.
I
We
think that's
know
fair.
that we can have a catastrophic, we could have a huge problem if this
All right.
isn't addressed.
So I think that's fair because that's what we're dealing with, right? Especially we all
Right, the
saw it
urgency is to-
five,
The urgent,
almost
Get
4 or
that,
5.
get the high part that
Yes.
away in the water.
Yes.
Okay.
and she did say that her contractor was that there is
So
a
he can work
potential
with
to
that,
work with
right.
her, so.
And the stuff
you
on the
know,
other side,
let's-
to wait.
Right, but I
Okay.
think that area there,
All right, do we have, anybody write that down? Because we got 4 or 5 separate
Motion.
conditions.
I only have one so far.
Okay, all right.
Wait,
So-
so I have eliminate 2 parking spaces.
Well, they're not parking.
Whatever, that area in the
that
north.
area
The areas will be
Or
planted,
adjacent to the-
planted where those 2 spaces were.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
Can I put parking spaces in quotes?
Right.
Yes.
we'll reword that, but the elimination of those 2 areas to be planted.
Yeah, at the front of where the disused driveway bridge thing
Yeah.
is.
Right. Revise planting plan, less trees, more shrubs.
Yep.
Or shrubs and some perennials, you know,
And
pollinator.
some perennials. Oh, yeah, pollinators. We haven't talked about those.
Right,
guys
they
for a
can
while.
increase the number of perennials, native perennials.
Native.
I need a little clarification on the engineering part of it with the,
Just gonna go with Tim's condition.
okay. So
Tim's
just go with
condition?
Tim's
So that-
condition, so that's not it, we
That's
don't need
not-
anything
That's not a
extra.
condition.
Yeah, that's number 7.
Already
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
Okay, and then, of course, that they agreed to the staff's
Special
conditions.
Special condition.
That's the motion.
That's the motion.
And then the
6
condition for the
months,
time frame, that initiation
The,
should be within 6 months to
Within the
remove.
Sasko Brook watershed or floodplain has to be removed within 6 months.
What's the time frame? 6 months?
6 months.
How far from the?
Whose special conditions are they?
Commissioner Fain.
So
Oh, well,
for the
special,
ones for the number 7, staff.
Staffs.
Okay.
staff, special conditions and additional commission condition.
Okay.
And it was Commissioner Fain's motion, and was it Ed? Was you second it?
Yes.
You seconded, it. Okay. So there's a motion, that's the clarification of the motion to approve with those conditions. Anything else from any other commissioners? All in favor? Oh, Peter, okay, all around. That's impressive.
I think we did the best we possibly could. You know,
All right, so that's that, I don't know if they're up there, but
I was out with Nicole. She and I just can't get along at all. She wanted vertical photographs. I'm like,
now we're going to other, number 1, executive session with Conservation Director Tim Bishop to discuss current status of litigation related to 120 Wakeman Lane, 120 Wakeman Lane LLC, Janine Norwood and Fairfield Home Loans LLC versus Conservation Commission of the Town of Fairfield. I think I need a motion to
Yes.
go into executive session.
And then I will set up everything here.
Yep.
I'll leave and then you can text me when you're ready for me to come.
And then do we also need a motion to invite staff in?
You can do that within your motion.
Within,
Yes.
so,
It can be one motion.
one motion, okay, so it's anybody a motion to, go into executive session? Rick, motion to go into executive session and invite staff. And
specific to the Janine Norwood.
to the item number 1 under other, which is the, 120 Wakeman Lane, issue. Seconded by Commissioner Luxinger, all in favor? Aye. Okay, we are in executive session, so we have to do what we have to do there.
Okay, and it is 9:08 PM.
Recording is going.
Okay, so we are out of executive session. No votes or actions taken in executive session.
There were, I'm sorry, there
No.
There were
No
no
votes.
votes, no actions taken. It was just simply a discussion. It's still other. Is there anything else from any other commissioner that you'd like to talk about? In that case, yay.
Well done.
Sarah, do we have this for our